Hello guys, this time we are going to have a look at the Rook endgames and I hope you will enjoy it. Let's have a look at the positions with the pawns on the 7th rank. At this moment we have the pawn on the 7th on the h7 square, and as you can see, black king cannot make any legal moves. It's very important. In a moment you will see why. What would be the simpler plan for the defending side, you may ask? First of all, white cannot improve the position any longer as long as black is not making a simple blunder. For example, the opponent can make a checkmate idea if the rook is not protecting the last rank, or at specific circumstances the rook can be protected on the square that pawn is attacking on the last rank if the rook is of course not protecting the back rank as well. But normally this position is simply draw. Why? Because white cannot improve the position without black's mistakes, and therefore a pretty simple idea. And now let's check it out how we can draw it. White starts with waiting moves, going on the rook to the 7th rank, to the 6th rank. Now black replies, going to the rook on the back rank, and they are going back and forth, and neither side can improve their position. Of course, there are some ideas that I would like to point out as well. For example, at the first move, after white plays rook c6, black could reply not just rook b8, but rook a6, exploiting the fact that the king doesn't have any legal moves after rook a6. If the rook captures, the game ends in a stalemate, therefore one of the tricks. Another one would be the same idea, but on the later stage. For example, right now, instead of going back and forth over the last rank with the rook, not dropping the rook, of course, onto the pieces, we can just go with the rook, attacking the rook and the king simultaneously, forcing the trade of the rooks and making the stalemate. Therefore, at this moment, another interesting idea to remember. And now let's get to the next position. With the next position, we just shifted the position one file left, and now we can see the pawn on the g7. Again, the king doesn't have any legal moves because all of the squares are covered. Therefore, black is in so-called Zugzwang in the stalemate if the rook is gone. And now again the same idea. If white is going back and forth over the 6th rank, black is replying on the last rank. And now what can be done? Of course, after the first move, white makes on the 6th rank. Black can exploit the fact that the rook cannot capture the counterpart because the king will be in stalemate. But take notice, after rook f6, black cannot capture the white rook because after the capture, the pawn endgame is lost. Therefore, be careful. And therefore, after this, of course, black is going on the back rank, and again, it is a draw. Of course, the same idea applies. If they want to make the same trick as previously, they can make this type of stuff with the check, because after the check, there is the double attack, white must capture, otherwise they lose, and after the capture, the king doesn't have any legal moves, therefore a draw. Another position. Now, we had the position with the king, pawn, king on the h file, then on the g file, now on the f file. What would be the difference? Technically, at this type of position, there is not too many differences because the king is still in the stalemate position, and this is the key factor. And the ideas are the same. The rook are going back and forth over the last rank. Of course, after the first move of white, black can make the same trick as previously. After rook captures, of course, it ends up in a stalemate. After rook goes here, you cannot capture with black because after that you are forced to leave the promoting square of the pawn, therefore a loss. And after going back on the last rank, the same idea applies. Of course, if white is going back and forth over the 6th rank, black can exploit the fact that they can make a double attack on the 6th rank, forcing the trade of the rooks, otherwise white loses, and after the trade again, black king is stalemated, therefore another way to force a draw. What would happen if the rook is not on the back rank, but the rook is trying to attack the king from the rear? Now it would be pretty different idea, but you'll know why it is so important in the next episodes. And now let's check it out. Of course, if white to play, they checkmate in one move, but black is on the move. After rook attacks the king, it attacks with the x-ray the pawn as well. After the king goes on the left side, rook is just harassing the king, going after the king all over again. Of course, take notice, very important moment. and if black now at this moment captures the pawn, we are just losing because of the checkmate on the back rank. Therefore, be careful, because there are a lot of traps with the rook endgames, as you will be seeing in the next episode as well. Now, the position that we make the same idea as previously, we shifted one file left, and the same idea applies. We are attacking the king from the rear, and now all the time the king is harassed by the rook. Take notice, the king cannot get any closer. If the king goes too far away, we can just capture the pawn, and the game ends in a draw. Take notice, there are some interesting ideas. Now, if the king gets into the f6 square, it is the stuff that we can capture the pawn. But take notice, if we capture the pawn immediately, now after the rook check, we are lucky that the king can hide. After that, it's a draw. But if the king gets the other direction and now we capture the pawn, now it is going to be a loss. Why? Because the king cannot hide, and after the king is standing on the 7 and the same file and the same rank as the rook, we are just exploiting the fact that we are using the X-ray attack. You can call it the skewer, after that winning the rook and game over. Therefore, be careful when you are capturing the pawn. Check out if you cannot lose the rook. And therefore, at this moment, a pretty simple idea applies. Now, the same idea, but with the kings and the pawn on the f file. Again, we are just harassing the king all over again, and if the king step back as far as possible from the pawn, we can just grab it with the rook or with the king and making a stalemate. Making a draw easily. Now what happens if the pawn would be not on the 7th, but on the 6th rank? What would be the difference? Take notice, we are analyzing the pawns on the H, G, and F files. Now at this moment, after white plays king f6, take notice that after h7, we can go back and forth over the last rank, excluding dropping the piece, and now this one will be pretty easy to draw. And now, as you can see, the king is in a stalemate. Therefore, if black will force the trade of rooks, it's a pretty simple draw. Of course, there is another plan, going back and forth over the back rank. It is the same idea as well. And as I just mentioned, after that, they can immediately force the trade of the rooks. White must accept the gift, otherwise they lose. And of course, they can just go back and forth on the back rank as well. Of course, if they want to force a draw, it will be even faster, because now the king doesn't have any legal moves. What happens if the pawn is on the G file instead of the H file? Of course, the chances for winning increases, but it's still not enough to win. Why is that? Because now the idea is the following. We are like to get with the rook on the 7th rank and make the X-ray winning the rook, but it's not possible if the pawn is on the H or G files. And now after the check, the king go back and forth. Take notice, the king will be going in the corner, because now if the king will be going into the other direction, there is the chance that we can win the rook with the X-ray. And of course, going back and forth, the game ends in a draw. Take notice, there are another ideas that I would like to point out quickly. For example, they can go all of this stuff like that, and if they do not want to agree for a draw and they try to go with the G7 and then attacking the rook with the X-ray, they are just losing swiftly. Why is that? Because now at this moment, first there is the check, the king cannot protect neither the rook, neither the pawn, the king must retreat, and after the capture, the black pieces controlling everything, white loses the rook and the game. And now, this is the one idea. The other idea, if you'd like to try to force the things into the drawn endgame without the opponent to flag you out, you can just try rook f7. After the opponent will be going back and forth over the last rank, now we can use this trick of forcing the trade of all of the pieces up to the dead draw. After the check, take notice, the king cannot capture the pawn, and after that there is the draw automatically without getting flagged. Therefore, another way to make this pretty simple to get into the draw position. And the last one, we had the pawn on the 6th rank on the H file, on the G file, now the time the pawn on the F file. What would be the outcome of this position? Unfortunately, black cannot defend this position because white is going to make this idea work with winning the rook on the back rank due to the X-ray attack. After the check, the king gets to the G8 square, And now at this moment, we cannot throw the check as yet because the rook is not going to be protected. And now with the fact that the pawn can attack the king, and after the king step back, then we can make this idea work. And now at this moment, it's winning. Take notice, if the rook would be standing right here, after the capture, it's still winning, because either the king has the promoting square covered, either the pawn promotes immediately into the queen. And therefore, at this moment, we just studied the basic positions to start with the endgame series, the Rook endgame series, to get you the opportunity to see that we start with the simplest stuff and step by step getting into a little bit more difficult. And now I hope you enjoyed the Rook endgames that we learned together. At the same time, if you would like to check out the next episode, I hope you will enjoy it as well. And see you next time.